Hello, and welcome back to Veteran Instincts. This week we bring you yet another game from what is now the third instalment of the Vagabond Open. We are joined by two Canberra locals, reigning Australian national champion, Micheal O'Connor, and self-proclaimed serial pest, Ben Lorking.
Micheal, you've been on before. Why don't you start us off?
Tell us about your list, why you took it, and what you thought about the matchup.
So this is something I sort of came up with once the points dropped, where I was just, throwing random things in a list and seeing how many of what I could fit in with what else. And I think it originally started with a Star Killer instead of Thanison, and then I was like, actually, Thanison sounds kind of fun. It was just also a little bit of practice with some Barons.
And for my benefit, could you remind me what Thanison does, in particular what Biohex cryptocodes do?
So Thanison is, if I think it's something at range 0 to 1 gets a stress, you can spend a charge to give it a tractor. 0 to 2 an arc, that's it. Probably big surprise, it does almost nothing this game. So I'm not sure it triggered at all. And Biohex is, if you have a target lock on something, you can spend the lock to coordinate to it at any range or jam it at any range.
And Ben, actually, this is a little bit of a throwback to the first game we ever had on the channel. A very similar list to one that one of our local guys was running. And looks like it still fits post the points update. So tell us about it. Why did you pick it? And what was your thinking coming into the matchup?
We actually picked each other's factions this week. I picked FO out of his remaining list. He picked Scum out of mine. I wanted to pick Guri because she's amazing. But Micheal pretty much picked that I was going to fly that and called me out on it, so I decided not to. So I thought, oh, what else is amazing? Oh, Boba Fett is the best. What's another good blocker to go with him? Nom Lum is fantastic, and so is just another zealous recruit. So that was my thinking.
Interesting. When you guys were picking each other's factions, were you going for what would be the most fun, or what you thought they'd be worse with and would give you the biggest advantage?
I went, the last time we played each other, it was actually this matchup. It was FO versus Scum, and Ben was Scum, and he beat me, so I wanted revenge.
Yeah, picking FO feels like a weaker pick, right? I think giving your opponent Scum, obviously depending on what choices they have, feels like you're giving them a really good pool of ships to choose from.
Mm-hmm. Michael's made the first bad decision of the game, is that what we're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's interesting, right? Because saying that Ben loves to run Guri, right? The worst thing you can do in a tournament, especially if somebody has an opportunity to take against you, is be predictable, right? So if you give somebody a faction that they are known for flying with a ship that they love, you can then tech really hard against that if you want.
Hence why I didn't bring Guri.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really interesting, those little mind games you can get into, right? And you see that certainly going into big tournaments anyway. You see that in sort of ideas of what the meta is going to be encountering against it. But yeah, it's fascinating as well in smaller tournaments. And obviously, this is a microcosm of that. But if you have a small kind of environment or tournament scene where there are sort of 10 or 12 of you, you can very quickly work out who the best players are and what their style of play is and start taking against that, right? So you can warp your individual meta by knowing the people you're going to be playing against.
Yeah.
If you've got any unpleasant individuals like Lloyd in the community, then you know you have to have an answer to droids. Cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what's the most oppressive thing in the game right now. Let's try that
out. And so we're starting the game here with the rocks down and the ships down. Let's go with Ben first, seeing as you've got that I6 across the board from you. How much of a concern is that for you with Boba? Did that play into your thinking with the rock placement and the kind of central board position you've taken up? I quite like. I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so going back to rock placement, so I had no idea where his 6 was going to be. I was quite surprised with Micheal. We'll go one step back further again. Both of us had been drinking a little bit, and therefore our decision making probably was fairly relaxed. But I was very surprised Micheal created this wall down the bottom of your screen there. I thought with his big shuttle, that's going to really limit him on the southern end.
My original plan was to hide Vonreg down there, and sort of, everything else is coming from the top, and Vonreg would sit down and hide behind his rocks. And then I remembered how Biohex worked and that I'd need to target lock him in the first round. And so that was the next mistake I made.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool. And the central placement, was that to limit Michael's options further?
Yeah, so my thinking is having a blocker on either side of Boba is fantastic. and the way the rocks were set up, I could go into the rocks and come out of an alley where he has to really choose quite early which road or alleyway he's going to go down between the rocks. So it put a lot more initiative or thinking on his part as to where he's going to commit, and then I can react to that being in the middle, sort of floating around near that gas cloud anyway.
Yeah, that's something I really like to do, is kind of have that pyramid of rocks facing away from you. And as you say, it kind of makes your opening couple of turns a bit more difficult, but on that engagement, you're often flying out of the rocks, and turn 2 of the engagement, you're K-turning into clear space where they're having to then deal with going into rocks on that key turn.
Yeah, exactly.
That can work really well. And Michael, looking back, you kind of happy with the rocks, happy with your setup, or kind of would have done things different?
I probably would have tried to spread the rocks out more, but in the end, the rocks did cause me trouble. My hope going into it, though, was that I have 3 ships that are above his I-1, so my aim basically here is kill the Zealot, because I figured I had the best chance on it, then go for Nomlum and hope that the shuttle is scary enough with 4 dice to just kind of herd maul just a little bit away, because it's just enough dice that he can't really still want to face check it.
So I'll click through the kind of opening moves now. While we do that, Ben, I can see you've got what we see quite often on Numlum in Dengar crew. Personally, I can't decide whether that is a good use of points or not. And it kind of often for me comes down to there's not much else to spend points on in the list. But I suppose from Michael, first of all, is that going to worry you with your 4 health ships? Do you decide not to shoot at Nomlum, or by the sounds of things, you kind of going to ignore it and Nomlum's got to be off the board?
It depends. If I've got enough shots on Nomlum, I'm just taking them. I'll ditch the green token maybe. I guess it's the good thing about the BAs is if you want to, you just end up target lock focus anyway. So you use the target lock for your offense, and if they Dengar you, you spend the token and don't take the damage.
So we can see the opening moves coming out here. Both looking like you're not going to mess around and get into it quite quickly. Nice aggressive opening move from the Zealot. Nomlum hanging back a bit more, and Bobber looking like maybe he's waiting to see where everything goes. Lloyd, what are you kind of thinking looking at the setup and the opening moves?
My first thoughts really are that I'm intrigued by the number of big rocks here with an upsilon running around the board. It's either a lot of confidence in yourself or, maybe just a few beers in and having fun with it. So I feel like already, Thanisson's kind of limited to really 1 or 2 places, right? And he's not going to be near the Zealous recruit for a while, probably. I suppose actually Thannisson has got a hard turn down the board he can do. But again, if the Zealous recruit doesn't bite on that, he's out of the fight for a long time. So Thannisson's having to choose now, basically, where he's going to be for the rest of the game. But he's a battering ram, right? So you're just trying to trade him for something.
And I guess the important part is I had the bid here, so my Thannisson is moving first.
Which actually is interesting in terms of threatening the recruit, right? Because the recruit now is less likely to want to reposition because of that stress. But obviously you need to be in the right place for that to work. So I think this rock is going to cause some issues for the next few turns for Thannisson.
That was the rock I was scared about.
That rock is the centerpiece of the whole game.
And talking of rocks, and maybe obsessing about it slightly too much as I tend to. Michael, I'm assuming it's you that brought the single gas cloud because of...
Correct.
You have Onric. Why only 1?
I've been playing with gas clouds too much and wanted to try a little bit and less with gas clouds.
That's perfectly fair. I think I tend to find it either I have a list that loves gas clouds, so a Kylo list loves them, Jedi lists love them as well for that initial approach, and either you want all of them or none of them, right? So it's definitely an interesting one. I think when I was running Kylo a lot, because he tends to stress himself going into engagements, and so he doesn't have that K-turn or Talon roll on into the sort of second round of firing, I found just 5-forwarding through a gas cloud was a pretty good way of disengaging him. And so that was the kind of first time I started running them. Yeah, just go hide behind a gas cloud with force. And I'll worry about this later. But nothing you can do is going to put any damage into it.
I've spent the last week trying to make Scum hand work, and I'm really not a fan of gas clouds.
Yeah, really. Does all your hard work with Scum hand, doesn't it?
So we've seen those opening moves, and I suppose that's kind of my main thought. I think Michael sort of taking an aggressive stance, spread his arcs out nicely. I agree with Lloyd. It's going to be a bit tricky to get Thanison in, but I don't know that you necessarily absolutely need him in the first engagement. Probably worthwhile him hanging back a bit so he knows which area of the board to engage into, rather than guessing, overcommitting, and then being out of the game potentially for the entire game. I suppose from Ben's point of view, in my mind, that recruit is a bit further forward, and I wonder whether he slows down this round. He certainly doesn't want to go and engage the provocateurs on his own, I wouldn't have thought. And he's a sort of a slightly awkward range as well, where even with the 5 straight beast, I don't know that he guarantees getting to range 1. I mean, as we all know, these fangs, die at range 2, and that's not the place to go. So I wonder whether we're going to see a kind of 2 straight now from him, and or maybe even the 1 hard and duck in behind that cloud to kind of stay safe while Bobber and Nom come in.
So rolling on into the next turn.
We see Thanison coming around with the 1 bang. It looks like he might be clicking that rock with the 1 straight forward, but no, maybe not. Maybe that's the kind of ideals fitting through that gap, and if so, that's very nicely judged. Nom considering, and shows what I know, the Zealous recruit not worrying about it and coming in quick, presumably hoping that we don't get the kind of 1 banks and barrel rolls from these provocateurs, which is what we see.
Yeah.
Assuming a barrel roll to the left here. Nice. So we always go. Already seeing the sort of benefit of having those kind of mini aces, really, where they're only I3, I believe.
Yes.
But moving after 2/3 of Ben's list. And this guy's sitting here at range 2, so potentially a bad time for the Zealous recruit this turn.
Correct.
And Bobber coming up, nicely judged boost around on there, and actually Bobber in a really nice space. He's got a lot of options for next turn. And Von Reg just kind of waiting to see what happens. So, I think if I'm you, Ben, I'm not thrilled by the position of the recruit. What was your kind of thought process with the 5 straight? What were you hoping for?
To be honest, I wanted the recruit behind Thanison, or at least distracting these other barons while I can get Bobber in. And so the plan was to get him out there. Definitely not happy with any range 2 shot on a fang, but I was less worried about the range 1.
I mean, I suppose maybe I've been a bit harsh. It's not all bad. You've got that range 2 trader fire with provocateur number 2 there, who's strained himself to keep his 3 dice. So he's only 2 agility, not a bad chance of doing some damage to him. And to kind of reiterate for people, the real power of these I1 kind of generics rolling around taking the focus is you've got perfect information. You know whether you need to spend your focus. There's no risking spending it on attack and then sort of not having it for defense. Lloyd, I think both players in a pretty nice position here. I think definite sort of method to the madness with that recruit. If he can go quick and get behind Thanison, that's going to be a significant issue. And probably not a bad idea of Ben's to kind of waste some time for the Barons and kind of tie them down in that area of the board.
Yeah, I think you can see in both approaches, right, which are the pieces that are the things they're looking at for endgame. So having gone very hard for the Zealous recruit, Michael's keeping Von Reg way back and out of the fight. And I think I'm right in saying actually rolled away as well to make sure he wasn't taking that shot. Because he's the valuable piece, right? He's the piece that in the end game has a chance to win it. If you have Thanison running around as your end game ship, you've almost definitely lost it. If you've got 1.5 of the provocateurs rolling around, but Bobber is there, you've almost definitely lost it. So Von Reg gives you that chance. So yeah, just being sensible with him, being willing to trade a significant chunk of the provocateurs to put some damage into it and give you the Von Reg end game that you're looking for. So actually, I quite like Michael's approach. The recruit did feel a bit aggressive, especially because he doesn't have any support. But as Ben says, right, like you're willing to trade 2 or 3 hit damage into the recruit if this goes slightly rough to get that position on Thanison and just threaten him for the rest of the game.
So we start off with a range 3 from Bobber, rolling 2 hits. I think at that range I'd be tempted to spend the force, but more conservative than I am. Worried obviously about the 4 dice coming back from Thanison. Keeps it at 2, and Thanison blanking out there to take a nice 2 early damage. Now we've got these first order provocateurs coming in. So range 1, going to be 4 versus 3 here. Oh, only the 2 hits, a bit disappointing, and should be okay. Not a great defensive roll there. The 1 evade from the title and spends the focus to take nothing. And then presumably this is the second provocateur shooting. Re-rolls with his target lock for a nice hit crit, and this is looking worrying for a now tokenless recruit. Gets the 1 of aid, but takes hit crit. And we see a console fire. Could be worse, but not ideal. So opening turn of the game, down to half health already, and with that console fire that may be about to trigger. Just the limit of range 3 between Bobber and Thanison here. Still has his focus taken. 2 hits is not bad. Very good decision to keep the force there, which is spent for 1 damage to Boba Fett. Nom Nom out of range. And then looks like the last shot is just going to be the Zealous recruit back into number 2. See if he can repay some of the damage. Oh, and does in a big way. That's 2 damage into the Provocateur. And I think, Ben, you have come out of that very well.
Yeah, I was happy to trade half for half.
Yeah, and you did a good job of duking me as well. From how you were describing it, I thought that he was going to be disappointing, but no, that's already looking like you're getting a good trade out of him. So, Micheal, we've kind of agreed you got yourself into a good position. Always a bit disappointing then to not kind of get the reward for it, or as much as you would like. Get the console fire roll coming in here, and that doesn't trigger. Console fire traditionally done about halfway through the cleanup phase.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's like universal. Everyone does that. And what are you thinking here, Micheal? I think that the correct thing to do is sort of shrug it off, be happy with your positioning, and kind of stick to the game plan. But it's easier said than done sometimes.
I didn't hate the trade hurt a little bit, but at the same time, I was okay with it. Wished Thanison's had whenever that 4 dice gun really doesn't do much, that hurts a little bit. But my plan here was then, okay, Thanison's getting jammed down his throat down one side. The first order provocateur behind the Zealous recruit can just one hard in with no problems whatsoever and just light up the recruit. And I figured with Thanison getting basically jammed down towards Nom Nom here, Vonreg is fairly safe to just kind of also threaten and try and finish off the recruit.
And we're really seeing the benefit here of your 1-point bid and having chosen to move first. It's going to be Thanison who gets to move where he wants to, gets his action, and Nom Nom who's then limited in terms of where he can go. And if that had been the other way around, then Nom Nom's all day long doing a 2 or 3 bank, isn't he? Sat there, Thanison's going to struggle to do anything other than stop and take the shot.
Yep.
And Ben, kind of sticking to the plan of getting behind Thanison. We've not really spoken about it so far. I think Micheal took us through it, but what are you thinking in terms of target priority and kind of what do you want the end game to look like?
Yeah, definitely need to get rid of that Thanison and Vonreg. To be honest, Bobber could take on any 2 other ships, but Vonreg and the shuttle would be hard work.
Yeah, obviously Vonreg moving second and the shuttle just having enough dice to overwhelm the defence.
And Ben, going into this plan, what are your thoughts with Bobber? Because sort of looking where it is, obviously, it's looking very much like Thanison wants to just into him, and from Thanison's position, he almost has no choice but to, right? He has to come straight between those 2 rocks. So your kind of options are, sort of turning left, turning right, or just trying to ram into him, right? So ramming into him actually, I think, is possibly the most interesting, but if you get it wrong, it's devastating, right? Because you might take 5 dice to the face.
The plan was turn Bobber out and ram Nom in, but without wrecking it for everyone.
And that's fair enough, yeah, because I think from Michael's point of view, if I was in his position, I'd be looking at Provocateur 2 turning hard left to try and block that escape route from Bobber. So Bobber has to turn out of the fight or go towards Thanison and just make sure Thanison can leverage that gun for a few turns.
Yeah, I think this is a good moment to point out something which honestly I had sort of overlooked looking at this, and this is a Slave 1-less Bobber.
Absolutely, yeah.
Correct.
So Ben actually going to have to make some decisions about where he wants to go in the proper time window. And that's a sort of direct effect of the points change, right? I think I probably would have dropped Dengar in favour of dropping Slave 1. Do you think that Dengar is the better sort of competitive choice, or was it more that you're playing Micheal, an element of does Bobber work without Slave 1, kind of some testing?
I think Nom Nom just goes from being a blocker to being a pest that you don't want to shoot. So I think removing Nom Nom from being the target priority. I've played a few games the weekend prior to this game. Nom Lum really did some serious work when everyone was too scared to shoot him.
Yeah.
So I think I like bring Dengar just as a deterrent for people. And same with the iron cannon. Everyone freaks out about the iron cannon out the front. I think those two on Nom Lum just make Nom Lum a fair bit more scarier for a lot more different ships.
All right, then. So let's go on and see sort of turn 2. We've got Thanison, beautifully judged coming into that gap between the rocks. Nom Lum smashing in there. I think a reasonable choice, a reasonable position, kind of not getting shot.
The bank in earlier, lining up perfectly with the rocks, surprised me. I thought that he was far more limited with the movement.
Ben, you know Micheal better than us. Luck or judgment?
No, I'll give him this one as judgment, for sure.
Oh, luck as all hell.
No, it was beautifully lined up, absolutely.
That was really nicely done. So Nom Lum taking them up there, not the worst thing in the world. He's got his iron cannon pointing towards Vonneray, going to give Vonneray pause for thought, and obviously is not taking that 5 dice. Does limit Bobber's options a little bit, and at this point you've got to kind of believe that he's hard turning in one direction or the other. And the Zealous Recruit kind of getting out of there. We've got a decision now to token up or fix the console fire. And looks like he fixed the console fire there. Sloop here from the Provocateur. What's the kind of thinking behind that?
I was thinking the Recruit was going to turn back in. So that one was covering if he turned back down towards Bobber, and then number 1 basically covers if he goes the other way.
Nice. And number 1 taking the strain there to get his target lock, focus, double modded shot. That's going to be going into the 2 health Recruit. Bobber trying to bank because of the block, not quite making it. So sat back is at range 1 of a modded 5 dice shot coming in, and hasn't been able to take any takens of his own. And then Von Reg just coming down, as you said, Michael, trying to deal with that Zealous Recruit and make sure that you capitalise on that early damage. And so I think this has turned out quite nicely for Michael. He's really made the most of the kind of slightly jammed up position that Ben found himself in. And as I said earlier, that kind of Thanison moving first is the key to all of this. This turn, not taking much in terms of modded shots, and got some good quality fire going back into Ben's list.
So I made some bad choices already just with that. So I did have a 2 hard dialed in with Bobber and changed it to a 1 bank for some stupid reason. Was worried that I'd get blocked by one of the provocateurs, and so went for the 1 bank and then forgot that I'd be shoving Nom Lum in there. So wasn't overly happy at this stage.
I think that's easy to do. It's certainly something I do. You kind of have a set of maneuvers, dial them in, and then at the last minute change one of them, and don't go back and think through the rest, not thinking about the knock-on effects of changing one of the dials. Ben, what I wondered if you might do was turn Bobber hard right there. I think from where Thanison was, it was likely if Bobber goes hard right that he can boost probably out of arc, but if not, if Thanison stayed still, then at least kind of boost to a position where he was at range 3, had cover from this asteroid here. And not great shots this turn, but allows him to get around the top half of the board and maybe be in an awkward position for next turn. Is that something you considered?
Yeah, no, definitely wanted to turn Bobber in on the 2 provocateurs there. So I was probably narrow visioned and always wanted to turn left. So no, I hadn't really entertained the idea of going up the board.
And it's really tempting with Bobber, isn't it? You want to get me in, you want to get him his rerolls.
Yeah.
And and I'm not convinced that my hard turn away plan would have been a good one, but it's just something that ran through my head. Let's roll ahead. Let's see the outcome of these shots, and then let's kind of talk about how Ben gets himself out of what looks like a slightly tricky position at the moment. So Von Reg first. He took the deplete, sensible because he's in both the ion cannon arc and that Zealous Recruits. Just the 1 crit. Oh dear, and the Zealous Recruit looks like he's given up at this early stage, not trying very hard, and takes the crit. Blinded Pilot has no tokens, probably not going to be hugely relevant for the rest of the game, at least the kind of what the crit was, but definitely relevant that he's taken that extra damage. Got a Bobber shot coming in here, 4 dice, so shooting into Thanison. So he has the reroll for 1, fearless for a second hit, and chipping extra damage into Thanison, but got to be hoping for more there. Thanos is going to take a long time to die if it's 1 damage at a time.
Yeah, so average shots there would have done 4 damage minus whatever he rolled. So,
and We get first really poor roll from Micheal here. No mods on that shot, and if you've got no mods, that can happen. So no more damage going in. And this is the key, and that's nice. Just at range 2, has the target lock and the focus. Just the 2. There's a chance to live, but just 1 too few evades there, and that's the end of that Zealous Recruit.
So if I didn't fix the console fire and taken a focus, there's potential that could have survived that round.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Sort of the focus is always likely to save you a damage, at which point it's kind of a wash if the console fire triggers, and obviously the console fire has only got a 50% chance of triggering. So yeah, probably statistically you're better off with the focus there. But that's knowing that you're taking shots. If you get into a position where nothing's shooting at you, then fixing the console fire was definitely the better choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice unmodded iron cannon shot here. Max hits. But Von Reg has all the dice and his focus taken, and it's fine. Final shot of the round. Thanison rolling 4 dice there. Is that just for getting the range 1 bonus?
I think it was actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true.
And Bobber spending his force to take no damage there. These things happen and people miss things. So it should have been 5 dice there. Bobber has a re-roll. He's got his force, so even had you rolled the extra hit, there's no sort of guarantee it would have gone through. So it probably doesn't make a huge difference to the outcome.
No.
But what does is the death of that Fang Fighter. 1 more damage done to Thanison this turn, and a Fang Fighter off the board. This is not a good start, Ben.
No, that's not a good trade. Not happy.
So what do you do in a situation like this, Ben? How do you kind of get yourself to kind of reset?
I feel like I've flown plenty of 2 ship builds before, so I wasn't too stressed at this point. Bobber's only taken 1 shield. I'm not too worried. He can tank a fair bit, but Von Rig makes me worried in this position. So Von Rig's going to get shots on Bobber this turn, more than likely.
Lloyd, looking at it from Ben's point of view, all over a disaster, or actually still got things he can do?
Well, you still have a Boba Fett on the board, right? So there's definitely still a chance. From where Thanison is, he doesn't have a huge number of choices. He can potentially try and turn back down towards the provocateurs and block the board up. But his gun is probably going to be out of the fight for a while. So Ben has a chance here to deal with the rest of the ships while Thanison is sort of turning back around and making himself relevant again. So now it's kind of just a race. And this is what I tend to find with Upsilons, is once they turn out of the fight, can you deal with the other things before they get back in again? Because the worst thing you want to be doing is knife fighting with something while there's an Upsilon rolling around behind you, just taking 3 modded shots at you. So you kind of got this clock, there's sort of 2 or 3 turns of, can I deal with the things before I have to start worrying about where the Upsilon is again? So Nom has a couple of choices here. So you could just 1 bump, stay where it is, make sure it doesn't get shot by Thanison, but I think that's the least interesting of those options. A 4K over the top obviously brings that iron cannon back into effect. If you start getting ions on Thanison, it's going to keep that gun out of the fight for a lot longer. But I don't know that Thanison is necessarily the threat at this point. You need to be looking at solutions for those TIE Barons, mostly Von Reg. So I like maybe something like a 3 bank from Nom Lum, just kind of get over that part of the board, stay relevant, and then threaten Von Reg a little bit.
3 bank to the left, sort of ending up. I
It's
worry
gonna be
slightly
close
about
to
that
this
being
rock,
on
yeah.
the rock. Yeah.
But I think that's an acceptable risk because it keeps Nom Lum in the fight. So maybe 4K is nicer, but if you 4K, you're going to end up in this part of the board, and you're never going to threaten Von Reg again. The 3 bank, even if it clips the rock, is an acceptable cost because then you're behind Von Reg and you're always going to be threatening.
Yeah, and you're also in a kind of nice blocking position, should anything try and run for the top of the board. So, Micheal, what are you thinking going into this turn?
So I'm thinking I don't want Thanison to move. I want him to stay there just in case he tries, to just inch Nom Lum forward and then just hold Bobber where he is and get another great shot on him. And then number 2, because he's now the injured one, he's now going to go in for blocks. And then Von Reg and number 1 just sort of, slowly roll in towards Bobber and Nom Lum and see what they end up with. That was the plan.
And are you still sort of sticking to the initial plan now of Nom Lum being the next target, or does this now start to look like an opportunity to kind of get focus fire on Bobber and do some damage there?
Bobber seems better at this point, but if everything works out and sort of Bobber doesn't move, then he's going to have 2 rerolls. Maybe I'm still shooting Nomlum. It's probably going to end up with what am I presented with?
And so, Ben, how are you getting yourself out of the situation?
Yeah, I needed to get behind Thanison. And I suppose from last turn, I was still focused on turning left with Bobber for some reason and getting behind Thanison. Mainly so I'm not getting shot, not necessarily so that I can hurry up and kill him. But if I could get some of those iron shots off on him, I think Lloyd said earlier that that would take him longer to get his big nasty gun back around. That's what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah, certainly. One turn of being an ionized for Upsilon is gonna get him massively out of position. Cool.
Yeah.
So let's roll ahead and see those moves. So we get the bump here from Thanison, staying still. See sensibly small things, but for newer players, no need to stop there, no need to get stressed when you can just take the bump. But the K turn from Omlum putting in a nice position, got a nice, no mods, but a nice range 1 iron cannon shot into Thanison. And as Micheal described, the provocateur here coming into a blocking position. Another guy just rolling forward. Taking the strain, feels brave to get that target lock and take the focus. Bobber slipping the net a little bit and coming into that gap. That's looks like a decent position. Assuming that we get the boost here.
Yeah, Bobber likes staying at range 1, but does not like getting that many shots.
Does not like 3 shots coming to him. I sort of paused there for a second as I thought you were going to do it, and I was like, wow, that is a crazy decision. But no, we get the boost, and Bobber now out of all but Von Reg's arc at range 2. He's got his double rerolls, he's got his force, he's looking in a much happier boy than he was a minute ago. And Von Reg banks in a safe place, so he can afford to take his strain, takes his target lock, and barrel rolled there. Barrel roll rather than the focus to get to range 2, or to kind of put yourself in a nicer place for next turn?
Line the bullseye up to give him a deplete at the start of the next turn.
That is something that I do not remember that Von Reg can do, but yeah, very nice play, very nice play. And we go into the shots. So we've got Bobber taking a range 2 shot here. Single modded, 2 hits, keeping the target lock, I think very sensible for next turn. Gets his evade, rerolls into a blank, and takes the damage. Tempted to spend the target lock there at all, or with the rerolls and the defensive token?
Yeah, it was too good of a chance he was just going to dodge it if I blanked out anyway. I wanted to save it.
Bobber has a nice shot here into the already damaged provocateur, and taking this off the board here would be a significant moment in Ben getting back into the game. So good initial shot, 2 hits and a crit, goes ahead and spends that force. And that is indeed a dead provocateur. So there's me thinking you were kind of in big trouble last turn, and already halfway through the engagement phase of this turn, it's looking far more even.
That is just Bobber. It's just, oh god, I've messed up and I've lost a ship.
So 3 dice here into Nomlum. Decent shot. Blank's not helping. Couple of shields there into Nomlum. And then this is important. Gets his range 1 iron cannon shot. Remember the rules of the game. Well done, guys. Rotating the arc on Nomlum. But obviously the iron cannon's still available out the front. But only 1 hit, which is evaded and back into the next planning phase.
And so as you go into this turn, I think there's a couple of interesting things, right? So the Von Reg barrel roll is brilliant. I'll summarize it as that. Depletes on a 2-ship list really cause some damage, right? When you've only got 2 guns rolling around, being able to turn one of them off or restrict its use is really impactful. And of course, you're relying on Ben remembering that can happen, and so dialing in a blue to clear it. If Bobber K turns or Talons or even just turns hard in towards Von Reg here, he's going to be doing so with a much less scary gun. So that's one point. And while I love Bobber's position here and the sort of escape last turn, Nomlum does not look like he's in a good position. Everything on his dial is aiming towards that rock that we spoke about at the start. So though I liked the K turn to kind of get behind Thanison, it's not left you with a lot of options for this turn.
No, and the iron cannon didn't really pay off either.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where the idea, Lloyd, of your 3 bank. I would have done the K turn, I think, because I think the 3 bank was on the rock. I don't think it was close. I think it was on. But actually, I agree with you. I think that the only way that this position ended up really well is if Nomlam irons Thanison. And to do that, he requires a perfect roll and Thanison blanking out, and all with no mods. So although it feels weird, I agree. I think turning onto the rock to have a better position for this turn probably in the long run would have paid off more.
Yeah, the option to one turn Nomlam from where he would have been down, sort of threatening this area, where Vonreg is going to want to be this turn, would be much scarier, right?
Yeah, in short, Nomlam is in a tricky position. Ben, why don't you talk us through what you're thinking? How do you get Nomlam out of this spot, and what do you do to take advantage of the fact that Bobber is now in a much more open part of the board?
So wanted to keep Nomlam on Thanison. Now I'm behind, but yeah, it's tricky how I navigate that rock, and it's hard to know when Thanison moves before me. So it's not like I can pick a spot on the board and go, that's where I want to be. It depends on whether he stops or whether he, does a turn move or whatever. So the plan was to keep on following Thanison with Nomlam and to turn Bobber around as soon as I could to take on Vonreg and the last of the provocateurs while Thanison was still out of the fight.
Vonreg's a little bit too close to Bobber here now, isn't he? And you've got the option, with those hard turns up towards to put yourself in a position that it's hard for Vonreg to kind of out position you and arc dodge you. I think Thanison's really interesting. So he's got a few options, hasn't he? Thinking about Nomlam whilst Ben was talking, we know that the 4 straight fits because he 4K'd last turn. One of Thanison's options here is to hard turn right and swing his arc round towards Boba Fett. And I think that's super tempting and probably the most sensible thing to do with Thanison. It almost certainly gets shots if Boba does anything other than run away. And you don't really have to kind of play the 50-50 game with Nomlam as to where he will end up. So I'd be tempted to 4 straight Nomlam and just take the side arc shot into Thanison, who, we're expecting to have hard turned, and then have an open area of the board to bank into to clear that stress the turn after. Obviously, the major risk there is if Thanison calls that and stops, then you're sat in front of a 5-dice gun. And you will get a return shot because of Nomlam's ability, but that's not a great trade. But I think that's what I'd be tempted by. So, Michael, from your point of view, any other options for Thanison other than the kind of stop or hard turn? And then what are these Ty Barons doing?
So, number one, he was basically thinking turn up towards Nomlam, current position, and just see what happens. Basically to try and get in behind Nomlam, actually, was the plan with that one. And Vonreg is just a lazy one bank down towards Bobber. The theory being that a bank from Bobber towards the top of the board, I just light him up on the side. If he hard turns around, I can one bank and barrel roll out. And if he runs, I don't actually hard turn Thanison because I was worried about clipping the cloud, and this is the turn I actually want to spend contraband to give Vonreg a evade in case Bobber tries to run, just so that Vonreg is tanked up, target lock focus, evade, not going to take damage from Bobber.
And that's the coordinate from Viax.
Yep.
We said at the start that Vonreg is your endgame piece, and so you need to make sure you keep him alive getting into that. So trading a provocateur for Nomlam is a perfectly acceptable trade because it still gets you the endgame you're looking for. Ben, question for you. Had you remembered Vonreg's ability? Did you play with or against him frequently enough that you remembered you were going to get a token here?
I've played with Vonreg maybe 5 times.
So presumably you are doing the same thing I'd be doing here and dialing in a one turn and completely negating or forgetting about the deplete that's coming.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I'd be exactly the same.
Okay, so let's see what happens.
So we see the deplete going on there. Bobber all of a sudden less scary, and something I think that I'd certainly forgotten about, none of us had talked about, which is a nice prox mine drop here from Boba Fett. Remembering your opponent's list, really, really helpful in this game. But Michael's already told us that the provocateur is turning up towards Nomlam. So again, either by skill or dumb luck, he's avoiding that bomb. One straight from Nom here, as I worried, does end up on the rock, but at least doesn't take any damage for it. And although not getting a shot this turn, the provocateur looking like he's going to be in a nice place to start troubling Nomlam next turn. And a Talon Roar for Bob. I quite like the Talon Roar. I think it puts his arc in a really nice place. and then the contraband pop there to boost as well. And that is a really lovely move. Not a lot of places that Vonreg can go to avoid that bump. Get real pressure onto that provocateur, who I would have thought prior to the moves was pretty safe. Really nice bit of Boba Fett flying there, and Vonreg players into the side.
I was like, damn it, that was really well done.
Yeah, it's one of the sort of begrudging, especially against a friend as well, right? It's even more annoying if Lloyd ever does anything clever. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but
No.
it's annoying to have to admit that they've outflown you. So yeah, really, really nice Boba Fett move. Slightly balanced out by the fact that Nom Nom's on the rock, but actually, Ben has the dream here, a turn where he is the only ship on the board firing. And let's just roll straight into that. So this is 3 dice from Boba because of the deplete. 1 the reroll for hit crit. Oh, and an under average defense roll there, and that's another halved Baron.
Ben, with the bombs, we saw you drop the bomb previously there, looking at kind of cutting out that channel for Thanison. I think probably that answers my question, but when you're running bombs, especially in a list like this, knowing that opponents do have a tendency to forget about them, are you the kind of player that will drop them with the expectation that your opponent may move into them, or will you wait for those perfect turns where you can drop them on an ace and there's nothing they can do about them?
I wanted to drop it there to close up the lane. I was hoping that the provocateur would turn down towards Nom Nom's trajectory and would get lit up from that.
Yeah, so everything Boba did that turn was lovely, right? The bomb, although not guaranteed, as Lloyd was saying, always nice to drop the bombs when they are definitely hitting. But there's benefits to that bomb whether something runs into it or not. As it is, nothing's run into it, but that middle channel of the board is really blocked up. It's going to make it hard for Vonreg to get back at Nom Nom if he decides to do that. It's going to make it even harder for Thanison to get back in the game, and Thanison is now looking a little bit out of it. And had Thanison hard turned or the provocateur gone right, then obviously you get the bomb off. Talking to bombs, and another sort of reasonable opportunity here. Having just dropped on last turn, you've got to believe that Micheal is going to play around the bomb with Vonreg and not take it. And for that reason, probably don't drop one here.
Yeah, his memory's a little bit longer than a goldfish.
Mine is not. And here, the bomb drop against me would have been a really good idea. But yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned already you guys are a few beers in at this point, right, as well. Like, knowing your opponent and knowing the situation, depending on how many beers in you are, that might make a decision as to whether or not you think he's going to remember it. But I feel like Boba just slow rolling this turn still doesn't leave Vonreg a lot of options, because if Vonreg wants to turn behind, then the bomb drop next turn is even better.
Yeah, that's right. If I can drop a bomb on someone who's already behind me, that's perfect.
Yeah, Boba, again, is going to be strained or depleted this turn. Probably the deplete again. But it's looking slightly tricky for Vonreg to get shots on him. Would have to risk the sloop or the K turn. Number 1, although he's in a nice position to go and chase Nom Nom, is looking like he's going to take some heat from Boba. You can't imagine Boba doing anything other than the 1 bank, or I can't imagine Boba doing anything other than the 1 bank left here. And Thanison in a tricky spot. Michael, what are you thinking? Thanison, maybe a stop, getting Nom Nom's way?
I'm almost certain that's what I was thinking here, is that if I stop, he's going to come forward again. It's going to deny him another shot because he'll be on the rock again. And if he tries that cheeky 4K over the top of me again, that's fine. I'll take the range 1 5 dice. First order pilot, I'm thinking, okay, let's try and block Boba. And I'm pretty sure with Vonreg, I was like, that bomb, there's no way it blocks my 5K. I'm going straight over the top. Because if I've blocked Boba, I figured I was safe. I don't think that was correct, but I figured I was safe.
I agree. I think the hard turn to the left here with number 1 to get into a blocking position for Boba seems like a really nice idea. Sort of some risk that he kind of does the 3 bank and flies over the top, but with him being stressed, the 1 bank is by far the more likely move. And I think you're right. I think that the 5K probably is safe from the bomb, but you probably end up in Boba's arc, but at least at long range. And then you only have to deal with the problem of blocking Boba, which is that you've given him a mod, which is slightly upsetting.
I feel like we've got 2 separate fights going on in this game. So you've got Thanison versus Nom Nom, where they're kind of just keeping each other occupied and out of the fight, while at the same time you've got Boba Fett versus these two Tie Barons. I feel like at the moment Thanison is winning the Nom Lum fight, but then Boba Fett is winning the fight against the Barons. Does that kind of feel the same to you guys? And if so, are you happy with that outcome, or?
Yes. I was very happy that I split them up, and definitely felt like Boba could handle, like I said at the start of the game, Boba can handle two ships pretty comfortably. So I was happy Thanison was out. Was happy for Nom Lum to not do anything, but keep Thanison busy.
And so, Michael, then, if Ben is happy with this trade or these two separate fights, presumably you feel the opposite way about it?
I wasn't super happy because, like Nom Lum Thanison, Nom Lum's worth less points, so I guess if he's keeping more of my points distracted, it's not the best for me. I'm probably keeping more points there, but it's still not the greatest. And I am now very much worried that Boba is just going to start one-shotting Barons.
Yeah.
Especially with ones on, on half health, and the last time one was on this amount of health, Boba just
Yes,
deletes
absolutely.
it off the board. So, yes, I start getting very concerned about that here.
Yeah, and I think this is something that I'm a little bit sensitive to, because I have a tendency to want to split lists up and go and have separate fights. And when I do it, I'm sort of in my mind looking at it like, well, this ship is fighting these ships and I'm slightly favourable over here, but this ship I'm slightly down, and is that an acceptable trade? And I get kind of very carried away in all these separate fights, and then get slightly overwhelmed in each of them, or some combination of them. And it's very easy to kind of lose track of the overall picture, right? And for you, Michael, your objective is you still need to get Boba off the table. And so now that turn last time from Thanison, we were worrying about blocking Nom. Maybe the priority should have been getting guns on Boba, even at the expense of taking a Prox Mind.
Yes, looking at it all now, I'm actually in agreement with that. I probably should have turned up. Just eat the bomb. Like, worst it does the rest of my shields, but I still probably would have got the focus, so it would have been a modded 4-dice shot into Boba, and that's always great.
Yeah, absolutely. Your best case scenario is you half Boba and take 1 damage, right? Which is huge.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's something to just kind of remember as that kind of flow of the game happens. It's very easy to kind of get caught up in the flow of a battle and just kind of let it be happening, rather than every time working out, is this still like favourable to me? Is this still the trades and the matches that I want? Or should I be disengaging from one fight to reinforce another?
Easy to see things in hindsight, but I wonder as we get towards the end of this game how important that one straight from Thanison will turn out to be. So let's roll ahead and see how this turn ends up looking. So nice stop there from Thanison. Doesn't leave Nom Lum many options. Blocks him back onto the rock. Again, that rock is obviously nice and soft, not doing any damage.
Hard turn barrel roll there from the provocateur.
Interesting. Talk us through the barrel roll. I think the play for the block seems sensible, but that barrel almost looks like you might have barreled out of the blocking position.
I thought it blocked everything. I thought that barrel roll back gave me and it didn't. This was me swearing into a microphone while playing Ben at this point.
Yeah, and we can see by millimeters, but unfortunately Boba now, rather than bumping, has cleared nicely and is sat in a pretty nice position.
The great thing about this now is that at least he won't be tempted to shoot Von Rake.
Yes, yeah, that is the upside. Going to have his reroll, got his force, and takes the focus there. Also, that one bank nicely getting rid of the depletes from Von Rake, and as you described at the start, we get the 5k from Von Rake here. So Von Rake, trying 2 crits, and the 1 evade initially from Boba, and again rolls blanks into blanks on defense, so it does at least take A damage. Really hoping for more than that at this stage of the game, but it's better than nothing. And then this is the big shot from Boba. Oh, looking like he should have taken the target lock. Not a great initial shot, but does at least get the focus. 3 focuses, single with the focus taken. That Baron lives to fight another day. The maths between the focus and the target lock are the same, right? That was just bad luck, and taking the focus allows you to have that force to spend on defense as well. So definitely not a bad choice, but didn't get the reward for it this turn. And then we're back into the next round.
So interesting looking at this, Michael. You said that he's only ever going to be shooting at the provocateur. Is that necessarily that clean-cut decision? Because a provocateur with a focus token, I mean, obviously, we've seen him bubble a few times, right? Just light them up. But that shot into Von Reg, who has no tokens. Von Reg's only averaging 1 evade result. So rolling 3 dice at him with a reroll, with a focus, there's a good chance you put some damage in, and then you could potentially kill the provocateur with a prox mine. Ben, for you, how easy was that decision, or was it kind of the chance to take something off the table?
Yeah, probably how quickly I saw the last one go at half points to just off the board. I was probably narrow visioned and just wanted him off, and was definitely hoping to do more than
that.
Absolutely,
yeah. Like, I think it's definitely, it's not open and shut either way, right? It's definitely, there's some argument for either. And taking guns off the table, especially when they're 3-die guns that can hurt Bubba, is certainly a valid argument.
Yeah, I think I probably would still have taken the shot at the provocateur. I think even if you don't kill him, if you get him down to that 1 health, then he is definitely dead next turn. I think the kind of nightmare scenario is that you drop this bomb, he rolls blanks, and is still alive on 1 health, and you haven't dealt with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then it's that trade-off of taking guns off the table is obviously good for you versus working towards defeating the thing that is the problem for you in the end game. Although, rolling on time, how long is there left in this game at this point? It doesn't look like there's very long left.
I can't remember.
I feel like there's still a fair bit. Thinking about our final positions, we do a fair bit more flying still.
So Bobber now starting to look in a slightly tricky position. He's going to be flying away. I think it's, be interesting to see whether you go for the Talon roll again. Obviously, without contraband, that's a much more kind of restrictive move, or whether you're happy to kind of forgo Fearless and just have those rear arc shots. Bobber doesn't like running away from stuff. Although he's got that rear arc, he gets, he flies away from his range 1 bonuses, and these Barons behind him taking shots at range 2 and 3, I think is definitely a trade that's in their favour rather than Bobber's. Meanwhile, the interminable Thanison Nomlan bump train presumably has to come to an end this turn. And Nomlan probably in a slightly better position. Thanison has to go somewhere, and Nomlan with the hard turn to the left is going to get arc on Thanison. His other option is to continue going straight and hope for the ion cannon. But I don't think that risking the bump is worth it. And let's just roll through and see this turn. Prox Mine is going to hit. You do roll the hit, and that is a dead provocateur. Thanison hard turning. I think that's a good move. I think you've got to sort of start to swing his arc round towards Bobber at this point. Keeps the stress. Nom Nom going straight. So it does have that range 1 iron cannon shot. Takes the lock. 1 bank from Bobber, and you've got to imagine that he's going to end up out range of Von Reg here. So defensive tokens from Bobber, and Von Reg just taking the focus and back into the next round. Nice 3 hits from Von Reg. And Bobber's defense dice have been reasonable, haven't they? He's always rolling like kind of at least 1 evade every time, and he's taken a few shots, and that seems just run out of shields. The return fire coming in. 1 crit, nothing you can do about that, and Von Reg not taking anything. 2 hits from Nom Nom, 3 hits from Nom Nom there. Oh, and 2 ion tokens. That is significant. So that's another damage onto Petty Officer Thanison.
And this is when Michael remembers that he actually needs 3 ion tokens to actually do an ion maneuver.
Correct.
So did you think you were ionized there?
I did for a second, then I was like, wait a minute. I know how this works, maybe. I don't play big bases that often, so, and especially not into ion cannon. So this was all a bit confusing. Normally I'm the one playing Nom Nom.
But it is looking at this stage like Thanison is not going to get through the game without being ionized. Almost wherever he ends up next turn, it looks like Nom Nom gets another shot. And only 2 more hits need to go through to get that ion token. So losing the Baron there, not ideal. Would have been nice for him to survive for another turn. But actually, position-wise, with Von Reg versus Bobber at least, I quite like your position, Michael. What are your thoughts at this point?
Yes, so I'm chipping away at Bobber at range. that's what I want with Vonreg. I'm less likely to take damage than he is. I'll just sit there and I'm not spending my focus. I'll focus up and not spend it and just see if I can get damage through. So I could bank Thanison to clear the stress, but that's got me pointed straight at a board edge if I get Ions again. So I'll probably hard turn him facing towards Bobber, get the arc pointed towards where Bobber might be, and Vonreg can just keep coming in, keeping at range and trying to damage Bobber without his rerolls, because getting Bobber to half is basically the only way I win this at this point.
That's exactly what I was doing. I was looking up points to see where you were.
Yes, you're 82 to 41 down here, and as you say, given Nomlum's position behind Thanison and the amount of points you are behind, yeah, you need to get Bobber down to half at least here. The other kind of consideration is that Thanison is now not far off half himself, and so killing Bobber is the game, and certainly now turning your attention, trying to get Vonreg in on Nomlum, especially with that bomb in the way, doesn't feel like a viable plan. Ben, from your point of view, Bobber in a slightly tricky spot. He's not got his rerolls. He's going to be potentially rolling towards Thanison. Do you kind of just keep rolling and hope that eventually the dice do you favour and do some damage to Vonreg, or is there a kind of more sensible plan?
No, so the plan here was to get Bobber into Thanison. I was expecting Micheal to do the one bank and clear his stress. So the plan was to one hard left with Nomlum, get the Ion off again, but send Bobber in now with like a 3 bank and a boost to get almost to range 1 in the side of Thanison.
Did you think about the one hard to the right here with Bob?
No, I'm looking at it now, and that is the move I should have done. I think it clears that rock, and then potentially even a boost as well. But yeah, looking at it now, I think that's probably what I should have done. I was also wanting to get as much distance from Vonreg as I could. So I was just getting plinked away at range 2 or 3 and wanted to get at range 1 of another ship, at least.
Yeah, I can understand the thought process. Definitely, you don't want Vonreg getting range 2 shots at you. But as you say, and as we all say, easy in hindsight. Had Bobber hard turned into here, tempting to believe you'd have been able to boost even this turn through between these 2 rocks, and at that point, there's a decent chance that that Vonreg overshoots you and doesn't get a shot. And although you've passed up the shot on Thanison this turn, you're in a lovely position behind him for next turn.
To chase him with both, yeah.
Much easier to kind of see these things, in the cold light of day when we're relaxed and chatting it through, rather than when you're, many turns into a game that's had a few sort of big dice swings and lots going on.
Yeah.
So we get the hard turn from Thanison. Nomlum coming around. Nomlum's a real problem for Thanison at this point. And actually, whilst Lloyd and I are a little bit critical about that 4K, it's now looking like it was a really nice decision. And those 2 turns of being sat on that rock for Nomlum, even if he'd taken the 2 shields, they look like they're worth it.
You beat me to the thought. Yeah, the Nomlum is at 0 risk at the moment and can just harry Thanison for the rest of this game, essentially.
Bobber coming around had no choice other than to sort of double down, had to get into range 1 for that reroll. Otherwise, it would have been sat at range 2 of Thanison and of Vonreg with not a lot going on in terms of the defensive tokens.
And also for Ben, his halving Thanison is his win condition, right? And obviously not losing Bobber. So from here, Bobber's taking a long range obstructed shot from Vonreg that shouldn't do a huge amount, and then 5 unmodded dice from Thanison. So it's probably going to hurt, but he's not going to take, or he'd be incredibly unlucky to take 6 damage in this situation. But if he halves Thanison in the process, there's then a lot of distance between Bobber and Vonreg. And at that point, you're up on points by quite some way, right?
Vonreg getting the long distance target lock there. Poor quality shot. We've seen Micheal already pass up kind of spending the target lock and on these poor quality shots earlier on, so I kind of expect him probably to do the same thing. And we roll into the attack dice. So Vonreg, thankfully, not giving Micheal the opportunity, rolling all paint. It's a focus spend for 3. But Bobber with 4 dice would have had the reroll in the 4 should you need it, but doesn't. Rolls nice natural dice out of there. And then follows up with the 4 hits with Fearless into Thanison. So this is already looking like it's going to turn out quite well. Thanison taking all 4 and is halved. And really, at this point, Thanison needs to do a lot of damage here to Boba Fett, or this game is looking like it might be getting away. And that is a disappointing 1 hit. I mean, no mods, but you've got to hope for more than 1 hit on 5 dice. and re-rolls into the focus, has the force to spend, and takes no damage. And we've still got the nom-nom shot to follow up. So again, spends the lock. Nice 4 hits, and I think that is an ionized Upsilon.
Yep.
Over ionized. Yeah.
Yeah, wasting those hits. Need them for next turn. And down to 3 hell. This looks tricky, Michael. I liked your positioning in the opening. I thought you played the mid game quite well, but it's kind of got away from you. And other than maybe that hard turn with Thanison, rather than the one straight, I'm struggling slightly to see what you could have done differently. We've had the benefit of kind of thinking about it after the game. Up until this point, are you happy with how you've played? Were there any major changes you would have made?
No, I was actually pretty happy with where I'd gotten to at this point. Yeah, looking back at it, like the hard turn up, as you said, was probably something I should have done, and I think at any point in the game I didn't actually think I needed to do that. Looking back, it seems amazing now, but no, I was pretty happy with where I was. I was just now worried that the only way I win this is I have to kill Boba.
Yeah, at this point it's incredibly difficult, right? But I think for you as well, Michael, it's a game of 2 missed blocks, right? You had the Provocateur originally down here, who was trying to block Boba, who then slipped through and got halved in the process. And then the second one here where Boba one banked and just cleared. I think if both of those blocks land, it's a different game. Boba's probably taken 3 or so more damage, and you haven't taken those halves into the Provocateurs.
Yeah, I'll take it back. That barrel roll, the second one, that barrel roll, I was looking at it going, I'm pretty sure the barrel rolls still fit. Yeah, no, that'll still block. Goes over, I'm like, nope, totally misjudged that.
Yeah, I'd also forgotten that, and it was very, very fine margins, wasn't it? But
yeah, it's a couple of pixels.
Had he stayed still, this game looks really different now. Cool. So you've not got many choices to make, Michael. Just Von Reg, and as you say, you need to kill Boba here. So presumably kind of banking in between these 2 rocks, trying to get into the side of Boba this turn?
Yep, 2 banks straight at Boba. Pretty much has to be what I do, I think, at this point. I've already got the target lock out there, which is good. So I have a barrel roll if I need it, still into a focus, or just straight into a focus, and I don't have to take a deplete or a strain, which I was kind of happy about. But yeah, to clear the strain, it's definitely going to be a 2 banks.
And Ben, what's your thought process at the moment? Finishing off the kill on Thanison looks relatively easy to achieve. Do you kind of stay focused on Thanison at this point, or is this a good time to try and bring sort of Nom-Nom round to get in Von Reg's way?
Yeah, so definitely saw Von Reg coming in, so wanted to turn Nom-Nom around, probably to finish off Thanison, and then to start to try and get that Iron Cannon on Von Reg. Boba, probably some kind of K-turn or something like that gets him turned around and chasing back down Thanison, and then ready to face off with Von Reg is what I want to do. Yeah.
The Boba decision is interesting with you talking about the K-turn. I think I'd have been tempted to fly straight over the top so I could have had mods for that rear arc kill shot. But actually, I think I prefer the K-turn because Thanison is not an issue anymore, and what you want to do is be threatening Von Reg. And we've seen over the last 2 turns that despite the fact that Boba hasn't taken a lot of damage, that flying away from Von Reg is a way that you lose this game. You just get chipped down. So I think I like the K-turn. I wouldn't have done it myself, but I think it puts you in a better position to scare Von Reg the turn after this one.
Yeah, and just knowing I've got Fearless range 1 facing Von Reg is where I want to be.
Yeah, because the way that you lose this game at this point is, so obviously if Boba gets halved, then you're down on points. If Thanison dies, which we assume is likely to happen at some point, then you're up on points again, but then if either Boba dies or Nom gets halved, you're down again. So what you don't want to end up in is a situation where in the end game, Boba has run away and Nom is trying to deal with Von Reg on his own.
Yeah.
We get the ion move there from Thanison, and there's just not enough room for Nom to fit the 1 hard. Don't think you had any other choices really other than to go for the 1 hard, but definitely a little bit of a bonus. Nom-Nom is not going to have that shot onto Thanison. Boba's going to have to finish him off on his own. So we get Boba's move here. The K-turn is in. Oh, and bumps. I was going to say it's going to be incredibly close.
That was the worst.
That is the worst. I agree. That is a real issue. And I've got to say, I not something I'd thought about. Obviously, I think with those fine margins, had that one hard fit, Nom would have moved far enough that he wouldn't have been in the way of that. But excellent flying of your ionized big base ship there to block Ben's entire list.
Thank you.
That's some not a lot of players can achieve that whilst not being able to set the dial.
Definitely a skill move, that one.
Yeah.
This was actually at the point where we weren't sure it had actually bumped. It was so close. We had to rewind the whole thing and play it out again because we were both like, no, there's no way that actually bumped. Surely not. Found it all the way back to here because we just weren't sure that the whole thing had gone properly.
Yeah, this feels like one of these times, if you're doing this on a table, you're calling every judge in the room over.
Yeah,
and being like,
correct.
Everyone just map this out and tell us what's happened.
On the table, the wiggle room means that this all fits, right?
Correct.
Cool. And we see you do that, and it turns out the computer was telling the truth. And what a lifeline! That's really potentially changed things. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'm not sure that it's going to be enough, but it's certainly better than the alternative, which was Thanison dying this turn. Von Reg rolls round, has the obstruction, a bit disappointing, but sensibly just takes the focus there. Is going to have to shrug off an iron cannon shot from Nomlum, which were it to go through would really be the end, and have Von Reg probably on that rock that he's sitting in front of. But does get the shot into Boba Fett here. So nice. And spends the lock there. I think sensible wanting to keep that focus. A nice hit crit into Boba. Going to get one reroll. And geez, Boba when he's rolling like this is so difficult to deal with.
Yeah, my Boba
but importantly, is halved.
Yeah, my Boba seems to roll a lot of flags into blanks, but is halved and is taking a crit. And that's a direct, so that helps a little bit. And now we get an unmodded iron cannon shot from Nomlum. Range 2 into Von Reg, going to be upset to take anything here. 2 hits. Oh man. Oh man.
I remember that. That hurt a
Oh,
lot.
ouch. 2 hits into blanks. That's incredible. For a damage and an ion. Wow. I genuinely don't know what to say about that. Lloyd,
This point I was
thoughts?
It was, wow, this game got really interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's a calculated risk, right? You're accepting that you're going to take that shot because getting damage into Boba is your win condition. But yeah, it's a high price to pay for it for sure.
Yeah, I don't expect to take the ion on 4 dice with a focus from an unmodded ion cannon shot. It can happen, sure. I just was not expecting it.
Yeah, and I think you're in a position where you have to take that risk, right? You're behind. You have to take shots onto Boba. You cannot be at this stage barrel rolling out and trying to get out of iron cannon shots. It's not sensible. It feels like the average damage there is below 1, let alone the 2 needed to ionize you. But you're now in trouble. So let's have a close look at that. What do we think? Is that on the rock or not? Obviously, you guys know, but Lloyd,
I feel
what
like
do you
it
think?
comes up just short, but obviously the turn after that, you're in a world of trouble.
Yeah, and with no ability to reposition, you're going to be taking some fire.
Obviously, now you're only setting the 1 dial again. But what are your thoughts with Thanison here? Because you've got basically 2 things, right? You can just stay where you are, bump, try and slow everything down again. But the risk of that, obviously, is this turn Boba clears you and you take all that damage, or to bank away and just kind of reinforce the back and try and keep those points alive. What's in your mind at this stage? Bearing in mind, obviously, you're having to kind of compartmentalize the fact that what's just happened to Von Reg as well.
My theory was I thought Von Reg, the ion move, put me on the rock. So and look, I still think this was right, but hey, maybe it was wrong. So he can only do the focus, but my aim was coordinate him the focus.
Okay, just to make sure he has it.
Yeah, even if I land on the rock, I at least have the focus.
Okay, no, that's fair, and that's low risk, right? It's minimizing anything else that can go wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I like that. Makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that, and I think it's again real nice, kind of clear thinking. Because honestly, I think at this stage, I wouldn't have even been thinking about the fact that I don't get my focus if I'm on the rock. I think I'd be so tilted by having just taken that ion. And you're not really passing anything up with Thanison either, right? The bump is okay, but if I'm Ben here, I'm hard lefting Nomlum again, hard one left, because that puts Vonreg in a world of trouble. At which point, Boba Fett can pick almost anything on his dial to get over the top. So I think the value of the stop or the bump is low. Any other action with Thanison is, like maybe the reinforce has value, but not a lot. So I think it's definitely the correct choice. I think that's a really clear bit of thinking and sort of trying to give yourself some hope. Ben, got to be pretty sitting there being pretty happy. Bit of a roller coaster of emotions, all those bumps, but then to get that ion cannon through.
Yeah, so once that would surprise me, I thought the game was won. I thought I had in the bag here. I thought he's definitely on this rock. Nomlum can one hard and get another nice shot on him. Vonreg was toast. And that's really game.
Yeah, it's looking really hard for Vonreg, even if he were to survive this next turn. It's looking really hard for him to score enough points. So we get the nice two-bank from Thanison. The other thing I think that does for Thanison is it gives him the possibility of getting another shot this game, whereas I think the stop probably is admitting that he's never firing again. Nomlum with the one hard takes the lock on Vonreg, and just the straight there from Boba, and again quite aggressive, takes the lock onto a Vonreg who we're expecting to be on the rock, but as we can see, not on the rock. So no action to do because he already has the focus, but crucially is going to get the shot. Going to clip that rock next turn, but certainly having a shot here is better.
And it's worth noting as well that next turn Thanison can coordinate a barrel roll so that he doesn't go over that rock as well.
Very nice, yeah, which is going to potentially cause Nomlum some problems. So let's see how these shots work out. Vonreg angry, rolls the 3 hits, and finally some blanks from Boba, taking 2. And Boba's starting, well, he's on 2 health, starting to look very low. I think a good, whilst we roll through the rest of these, a good lesson in just the value of persistence, right? With every single shot this game, I felt like Bob has taken less than he should have done. Not mathematically, but just given how much you needed it to happen. But the persistence and the shots every turn onto Boba is paying some dividends. We got the shot back from Boba into Vonreg with the target lock. Nice hit crit, but has the focus, and I'm sure, well. Decision to spend rather than take the shield? Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Leaving just the range 1 shot from Nomlum. Rerolls blanks into blanks. And Vonreg.
Couldn't have him.
Roll in the natural evades he needs.
So we had a discussion there. I was like, I don't think I spend the focus. Oh, wait, you can't eye on me. No, I spend it.
Yeah, and it's paid off. You don't take any damage. And crucially, you're not halved. So at this stage of the game, we've got a Vonreg looking at a rock, but as Lloyd rightly pointed out, has ways to fix that problem. A 2 health Boba Fett, and Ben is only 112 to 96 points up. So killing Boba certainly puts you in the lead. Thanison is 60 points, so were you to lose Thanison, Ben would be on 142. So if you were to finish off Boba, even killing Thanison is not enough.
Correct.
So you said last turn, Ben, that you thought that was game over. Now much less happy?
I wanted Vonreg to have at least gotten half that turn, so I was very disappointed. But I wanted Vonreg on that rock, which I thought it was going to be on, and then get 2 unanswered shots on him, but instead I lost 2 more hull on Boba.
And I think we spoke a little bit about target priority for Micheal. So you had a range 3 shot into Boba who you need 4 damage into him to score points, or a range 1 shot into Nom and you need 5 damage into him to score points. Now, Nom is the easier target, he's the easier thing to pin down, he's less defensive. But I think you made the right decision in shooting Boba. And I think that was probably influenced by the fact that Ben has Dengar Gunner. Was that the main difference in your choosing Boba to shoot at?
It's Boba with no rerolls, and yes, the Dengar Gunner was a major influence.
Yeah, it's very easy to gloss over and miss, right? But absolutely, the thing that isn't going to cause you to give up half of your ship in return, potentially.
And it makes sense from a points point of view as well, doesn't it? Nomlum is just so cheap when compared to Boba Fett.
Yes. Yeah.
So after a couple of turns of sort of iron moves and fairly obvious movement choices, now into a turn where you have to think about it much more. The Upsilon has the 2 hard whites, kind of puts him in a slightly awkward position, gives him the ability to coordinate, but heading for a rock next turn. So maybe the banks are more likely. Also, I mean, I don't know how many turns left.
We've only got 1 left, if that helps.
Okay, so this one and one more, or this is the final turn?
I think this is the final turn.
Okay, so given this is the final turn, I think actually probably what I do is the fastest white maneuver I can, straight along the top edge of the board with the Upsilon to just give him range and mean that he is less likely to give up those half points. I don't think you can get his gun reliably into the fight, and I think that Lloyd is right that the coordinate barrel roll away from the rock seems to make sense, because you can't have Von Rick giving up half points. And then presumably a bank to try and catch Bother. Ben, what were you thinking at this point?
I was thinking doing a 1 hard left with Nom Lum again, just to get in the way a bit of where Von Reg would want to go to get Bobber, and then doing a 3 Talon roll with Bobber to get him turned around so I can get shots on Von Reg. I was unsure whether I was up at this stage, so I was wanting that 1 extra hit point on Von Reg to get him to half.
And had you known you were up, so sort of doing this turn again, do you still make the same choice, or do you consider running with Bobber?
No, I'd definitely run with Bobber if I'm up.
And now you've got a couple of choices had you to run, right? Because it makes Michael's decision-making slightly trickier, because he's got to pick a direction. Bobber can come up into the top right-hand corner of the screen here, or he can run down into the bottom right-hand corner. And it's tricky for Von Ray to cover both. I wonder also about, after the hard turn with Nom Lum, whether the barrel roll back to kind of end him up almost where he is now is nice in terms of getting in Von Reg's way. Was that sort of something that we're thinking about, or was the kind of primary worry here getting shots onto Von Reg?
Yeah, I definitely wanted shots on Von Reg with Bobber, and was thinking all I wanted with Nom Lum was to stop him getting shots on Bobber.
And Michael, did you know you were behind at this point in the game?
Pretty certain I did. Main aim here was kill Bobber, kill Bobber.
I always find these turns really, really tricky to know kind of how to make a decision. It's kind of Bobber can go in one of 2 directions. Nom Lum can be in one of 2 really good blocking positions. I always get kind of caught in this analysis paralysis. Is there a way to know what's good here, or is it just a sort of 50-50 you pick a direction and hope you pick right?
So I saw the coordinate barrel roll, so it's definitely do that. And I didn't think I had a problem picking because I've got Daredevil and Von Reg, and I can just fix it with the hard turn boost.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
And just like I take the strain, take the lock, hard turn boost towards Bobber, and just pray for variance.
Yeah, the Daredevil gives you a couple of options as well, doesn't it? Actually, with the Daredevil, you could even, go straight and fast and then kind of turn either right or left depending on where Bobber's gone. And wherever we end up, barring a range 1 shot, 3 dice into 2, you are far from guaranteed to do that 2 damage that you need to win the game. Lloyd, anything more to add before we go into this final turn?
No, actually, I think that's just about perfect. The Daredevil fixes a lot of problems, for sure. And I think, again, actually, we're seeing a Von Reg that's really kind of delivering his value. He hasn't necessarily gotten the damage through that we would have hoped in this game, considering how many shots he's had and how many modded shots he's had. But we're seeing a Von Reg who's consistently getting time on target, and usually at minimal risk as well. So it's been interesting to observe and to learn from.
So we see that 1 hard from Nom Lum, taking a target lock and linking into arc rotate. Aggressive Talon roll here from Boba Fett. And Von Reg with the bank, sitting in a slightly tricky position here. Doesn't have reposition options, so can only boost because he's already done the barrel roll. So really nowhere to go, and presumably has to just token up and cross his fingers. So takes the focus, and we run into the crucial shots. So range 1. And attempting you have to spend here, I think, don't you, to try and force the damage through. Oh, has the target lock. Because you took the strain. Interesting. So let's start there. So you were going all out. You need to kill Bobber.
I needed the 4 dice because if I can get all 4 hits, it's a guaranteed initiative kill on Bobber. It was the only way I saw myself winning.
Even though that puts you at sort of 2 agility versus Nomlum. It feels like if you hadn't done that, and we can see if you didn't have the target lock there, you'd have got 3 hits. And let's see what Bobber does here on the roll. And that wouldn't have been, it would have just been enough, but it would have been very tight. So Bobber off the board. Points currently sitting at 150 for Micheal and 112 for Ben. Half of Von Reg. Don't think is going to be enough.
It's not enough, but all of Von Reg is enough.
Yeah.
And it is 3 on 2. So if I blank out again, I was sitting there going, oh no, don't blank out again.
So we get the first half. This has to be 3 hits. Isn't. But the target lock into hit crit. And 2 agility here needs a paint. Gets it, but the crit could still kill. So we're getting hit crit, so it's a shield and a crit, and as is so often the case in 2.0, coming down to the final dice roll, the final card flip, and that's a blinded pilot. And that's the game.
Von Reg lives on 1, yep.
Guys, that was an incredible game. That's one of the best we've had on the channel, I think.
Yeah.
From the Von Reg not hitting the rock onwards, I think me and Ben were just shouting at each other. It was great. Just the whole time.
That looked done, didn't it, at that point? So super fun. I suppose we've already kind of gone through this, Micheal. Like a couple of decision points early in the game that might have made things slightly easier for you. Ben, from your point of view, what was your kind of takeaway from the game? Do you like the list? Do you like how you flew?
Yeah, definitely love the list. I didn't like necessarily the way I played the Fang Fighter. Definitely made probably 1 or 2 mistakes there. In hindsight, there's probably a couple of other moves I could have made with the other 2 ships. But yeah, happy with the way I flew in general. Again, just super close, super fun game. You know, if Bobber survived it with 1 hole and could take another shot on Von Reg, could have swung either way. Not taking anything from Michael's flying with Von Reg was incredible.
Yeah, and that's a really nice time to go to you, Micheal. So I'd echo what Ben says. I think you flew Von Reg really nicely. Von Reg is a ship that you can get a lot out of, but you need to make good decisions. And I think that you never really, apart from that final turn, it never felt like you were taking a massive risk with him. You were never sort of taking the strain and crossing your fingers and hoping. He was always in a relatively safe position, getting well-modded attacks turn after turn. There's a fair bit of buzz around the first order of provocateurs since the points change. Are you kind of on board with that?
I like them. I think that, being able to fill out a list with Von Reg and an Upsilon and then just chuck in a couple of provocateurs, or the other one that beat me up the other week was just the Kylo and 3 provocateurs. Like that list just is fun. And especially when they all rock up and strain, and so you shoot one and then it loses a strain, and then suddenly people get weird target choices because they want to keep shooting strained things. I actually kind of think that's kind of interesting. It's probably the wrong choice, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? We're big fans on the channel of like making people make the wrong choice, and that feels like a kind of not obvious benefit, that list. I would worry about having to strain things, but yeah, if you get your opponent firing a single shot into each of his ships, that is no bad thing.
But I mean, still, my favorite one of these, and it's the one I normally play, is Hollow, because you don't have those downsides. You just throw your downside to someone else. Hollow's the best.
Cool. And Lloyd, take home from the game?
So I had a couple of things. I think the first part was sort of having a plan with your list. And so we saw from Micheal, so Thenison had sort of 2 roles, right? He's the big scary gun that nothing wants to park in front of. And Micheal actually managed to get a couple of uses out of Thenison. Never quite delivered. Thenison never had those turns where he rolled lots of hits and crits. But the threat of it certainly impacts the way that Ben had to play around it. And then also using that initiative 1 as a blocker and sort of controlling where the fight was going to happen and where the ships could and couldn't get to. And then tied into that, obviously, a couple of missed blocks from Micheal were huge. But again, it's a game of tiny margins. It has always been. And probably on the table, those blocks get made because it's that little bit easier and a little bit more familiar with it. But so frequently, we see games against good players coming down to tiny, tiny margins. And I think the final thing for me was there appears on this channel to be a very strong correlation between good play and good players and Australian guests. So I'm glad we've continued that today.
That's presumably a coincidence.
Complete.
Cool. Thank you very much for coming on, guys. I think that sounds like a good place to end it. That was, I think, maybe my favorite game that's been on the channel so far. And nice to hear from you again, Micheal. And nice to meet you, Ben.
No worries. Thank you.
Cool. And we'll see everyone in 2 weeks' time for another match. Thanks very much.